Hello, everyone, and welcome to this talk on how to accelerate the adoption of your internal platform, which I believe is a topic lots of teams struggle with. In this session, I'll share some focus areas or principles that will help you accelerate adoption. Under each group, we will explore a set of techniques that you can try. And at the end, I'll go over two case studies of dedicated modernization squads. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Javier Turegano. I'm one of the co-organizers of the Devops Represent community, which supports folks from underrepresented groups in technology that want to learn more about DevOps. My talk today is based on my experience over the years working in internal developer platforms of two forward-thinking companies, Slack and REA Group. At Slack, we created our internal developer platform called Bedrock, while at REA, we created a set of internal building blocks under the platform name of Collab. You've probably already noticed one of the key measurements of the success of any product is adoption. There is no point in creating an internal platform if your users don't end up using it. What's the point? And you won't be achieving any significant ROI on your platform work. But it's not uncommon to see the adoption of internal tools or platforms stagnate and come to a halt. It may well be that they fail to cross the chasm or to get to the late majority groups of the technology adoption lifecycle, but they end up failing their objectives. There are a myriad of reasons why your platform may not see the adoption that you would like to see. These may include things like not being fit for purpose, focusing on the wrong type of user, not solving the right problems, or even being too difficult to use. In many cases, you will hear comments from your target groups that will say, "We're too busy to adopt yet another thing," or "We'll get to it when we deal with a few more fires." Let's see how we can address those problems and foster adoption so you can roll over the adoption curve like our friend Sonic in this slide. Let's go. Our first area of focus is to understand the needs of our users and stakeholders. There's no point in building a platform or a set of tools that are not solving the problems of your users. In this case, the engineers in your organization. The key here is to apply product thinking to your platform. In addition, if your platform solves a lot of your users' problems by default, we can call batteries included, this will be a strong selling point that will boost adoption. For example, if your platform meets your organizational compliance, security, and performance requirements by default, then your users don't have to worry too much about those areas, and they can focus on solving user problems. Let's jump into some techniques under this area. The first one is to hire or borrow product-oriented folks. These are people that are specialists in product, like a product manager, or a UX specialist, or even a developer advocate that can complement the strengths that you have in your engineering team. It is very important to also work together with your early adopters. When you're creating your platform, you work with one or two teams and you start solving their problems, you will be sure that you are solving real problems and not creating a platform in a vacuum. It can be a great addition to your platform team to add product engineers to it because they will bring the mindset and the expertise of the area that you're trying to solve for. Another great technique is to establish a user advisory group. This is a group of folks from your platform team and for your product teams that get together in regular basis and discuss about the features, bugs, and the coming roadmap of your platform. Another great one is to have a feedback channel in Slack. That way, anyone can pop up in there and share their thoughts on the platform at any given point. Another powerful technique is to conduct user experience interviews. At Slack, we will sit with our developers and ask them a very simple question. Can you show us how to add one line of code to your service and then release it to production? This exercise was mind blowing. You may think that you know everything about how people are using your platform, but until you see it in action, you are not going to be sure that you cover all the use cases. So, totally recommend it. The next technique is to make sure that you are factoring adoption and usage analytics as part of your product. At any point in time, you should be able to answer the question, yes, but who is using the platform? What about feature X? Was that worth developing? Is anyone using that? And you should be able to track the adoption of your platform over time, as shown in this graph here. Let's move to the next focus area. Our second focus area, or principle, concentrates in providing a great user experience. A compelling platform will attract more users to it, and if they like the experience, then they will tell other engineers, generating the desired snowball effect that will help you greatly with adoption. Some techniques under this principle are applying UX research and design techniques, which can greatly help you with creating a beautiful user experience in your product. Run frequent user surveys, which is a great way to keep a feedback loop with your users. In those, I would recommend capturing NPS, Net Promoter Score, and we will talk more about it later. Streamline your feature request process and reserve capacity. And finally, run customer love sprints. This is the idea of dedicating some time from your team, maybe a sprint or a couple of weeks or whatever you want, to focus on those features that are going to be the lighters and going to create an amazing experience for users. But maybe they don't fit in your roadmap or they're not getting the attention that they deserve. As I mentioned, NPS or Net Promoter Score is a great way to track over time if people are happy to tell their colleagues to use your platform. We use this metric at Slack and at REA, and we will make sure that we will include it in our frequent surveys. That way, you can know how your users that vary over time are feeling about your platform. The other thing I wanted to share with you is this capture of the containers roadmap from AWS. This is a public product, but it has a complete repository where you can request features, and it's all public, and then people can vote on them. What is stopping you from having something similar inside your platform? And let's move to the next principle. Our next principle indicates that documentation and onboarding should be a delight. Make sure that your product has great documentation that helps users to get started quickly and also to figure out how to use those more complicated functions that may not be part of the day to day. A critical phase for that is during the early interactions with your platform, so you need to make sure the onboarding process is great and smooth. Here are some techniques that we can use for that. The first one can be to hire or borrow, if your business has one, a tech writer that can help you write beautiful documentation or even upskill your team in the art of writing documentation. You can experiment with different formats for your documentation. One that we tried is videos. They are great, they are more full experience, but also they are more difficult to edit. I would recommend to run boot camps and especially to make those boot camps part of your engineering onboarding process. So whenever a new engineer joins your organization, they will go through how to use your platform and will know from day one that day exists and how it works. Another great way to free up time from your platform team is to provide self-paced training materials, which we had great success also at REA and Slack. This is the Hello Bedrock repository that you could clone, download to your laptop, and then do a full exercise on how to use the platform without having to go to any of the engineers. Then, if you have doubts or anything is not working, you can ask in the support channel. This was a great start for engineers, and any time that we will add a new feature, we'll go into this repository. And now let's move on to the next principle. And it's great to see that you're still following along. I know this is a long talk. So, our next focus area is to provide reliable and user friendly support. It's nothing worse than feeling that you are alone when you don't know how to make a product work or when there are issues that need attention, but nobody's there to help. Your support channels should be easy to find and provide a great experience to your users. A lot of times, the users can get captivated by your ability to care about them when dealing with support. Let's move on to the techniques that follow into this category. So, have a dedicated support channel in Slack is normally a very easy way to do it. Maybe in the physical world, you will have a help desk in your office that works too. Provide white glove support. Some users will need more from your platform engineers. They will need to kind of get someone embedded and someone that can hold them along the journey. So make sure that you identify those key users and provide that extra support. Provide clarity on the response time for support and the availability. There's nothing worse than like screaming to the void and not hearing back. It's great when you know, well, we heard you, we recorded your request, we'll come back to you tomorrow, if that's the best that you can do. And finally, tune your documentation and FAQs based on the request received. And that way you will be able to deflect some of those requests from your channel into the FAQs and get users to hold themselves quicker. And now let's jump to the next principle. This may be a controversial one between your engineers, but it's time to flex out your internal marketing muscle, which is our fifth focus area. As with any other product, regardless if it is internal or focusing on external users, you want to promote and sell your platform. It's important that you invest in making sure that they know about your platform and what benefits it provides. By sharing what is coming down the road, you can build up excitement, but it may well also avoid them wasting time building tools or features that are already in the platform roadmap. Well, let's see some of the things we can do related to marketing. I will probably start with creating an identity for your platform or for your tools. A name and a logo are fundamental. You can create very cool swag of your platform. They can be stickers or teaser or anything that gets your engineers excited and to identify with your platform. The next option is to create a marketing site for your platform. This may be a little bit different to your documentation in the idea that it will go over all the benefits and all the good things and use cases of how to use your platform. Which brings the next point, which is publicize case studies of adoption and usage. It's really great to hear from other users instead of your platform engineers when something has worked or not, and how they are using it and how they've been adopting it. Finally, you could even promote new features within your product, just letting people know that a new thing is available when they're browsing or using the tool. Let's go over some of the examples of what I just said. The first one was about creating that identity and a logo. You can see that there was a lot of work put into creating the Bedrock and Collab logos and to create that identity for the platform. The next slide shows a marketing site for your platform, which goes over the different Bedrock features. This was implemented finally in a different way, but the idea still holds, which is to make it easier for people to find and understand what your platform does. And this case study, even if it is not an internal one, was a case study created by Bill Kite about the migration REA Group did to it. It's a great example of how you could, even internally, showcase how users are migrating or starting to adopt your platform. And we are reaching the last principle, so let's dig into it. While the previous principles and focus areas related to how to create and support your product, this final area deals with how to boost adoption via the creation of your own dedicated modernization squad. You can also picture this team as your own internal professional services. Similar to how commercial products and companies benefit from providing professional services, you can employ similar techniques internally in your organization. The idea is to have a group of internal consultants that provide hands on support to your users to migrate into your platform. They will work closely with the new users and make sure that when the work is done, not only the migration work is completed, but also that the new users are able to operate with ease in the platform. You can picture this team as an enabling team in the team topologies terminology. You use those as pictured in this slide. Now, let's see some techniques in this area. First question is always how can we fund those types of teams? And I will say go and talk to your finance team. You may get surprised. Sometimes you can fund those teams with the savings from being able to migrate licenses or to be able to use a different product, but also with the time saved from the teams not having to do the adoption themselves because it will be expedited by experts. I will say that if you have technical program managers or similar type of folks in your organization, you should try to get one to work with you in this type of migrations. They are great at mobilizing the organization. They are great at working across different squads and teams and to exercise that change and track how things are progressing. So they are an invaluable resource for your modernization squad. As operating model for that team, I would recommend embedding. That means that the engineers will go and spend some times inside those teams that they are supporting as if they were part of the team. That will create the trust and accelerate the adoption of the platform. Finally, there are many steps to do in one of these types of migrations or modernizations, and employing techniques like value stream mapping, you can figure out what are the bottlenecks, and then you can attack those by using tools, automation, documentation, whatever is required to reduce the time for adoption. Finally, I would recommend promoting new features within your product. Oh, that's not from this slide, sorry. I'll remove it later. So the final area that I want to talk about is mandate. As you can see, I have not included as one of the principles, but it's definitely one thing that you can use to hold and boost the adoption of your platform. Beware, there are a lot of problems with mandated platforms, and probably you're going to figure out that it's probably one that you want to avoid if you can. Finally, let's jump into the case studies for dedicated modernization teams or squads. I have two of those. The first one, while REA, we'll call it the Wally team. It was a modernization squad. The situation was that the adoption of a new CI/CD platform, in this case BuildKite, was slow. We were seeing that teams will not have the time or expertise to move. After their time they spent helping teams, all services in the 60 plus squads at REA were migrated to BuildKite. Their mandate or their objectives were expanded to many other tools and practices because we found that this pattern of expediting modernization was very effective. The other example or case study is the SRE India team at Slack. They were responsible of supporting a set of teams inside the Slack, and they have already migrated all of them into the platform. So we saw a very good opportunity for these fine folks to jump and support other teams. By doing so, we accelerated the adoption of the platform in some areas where probably would have been almost impossible for the product team itself to jump into this modernization. That was a great outcome. And finally, the team was repurposed and moved on to a different area. And that's everything. I hope that you enjoyed this session and that you pick up a few techniques and principles that you can use to expedite your modernization. My name is Javier Turegano, and you can contact me in LinkedIn and Twitter or through that QR code. Thank you very much. Bye.